Hello, welcome to Scrap Time episode 935. My name is Christine, and on today's episode I'm showing you the Derwent Inktense Blocks. Today we're going to make a card similar to this one, and we are using the Derwent Inktense Blocks, as well as we're going to cut out some texture using our scan and cut. And you can see here there's like some circles in our background. It might be hard to see, but there's some other letters here and diamonds and circles down here. So we're going to cut that out to add to our card, and then we're going to be adding on our Inktense right over top of it. So I have already stamped out this page. So what I've done is I've taken these background stamps from Basic Backgrounds from Dilutions, and I've already done some circles before and the diamonds, so I thought I'm going to do the numbers. And so I have stamped the numbers repeatedly a few times. And we're going to go and scan this into the Brother Scan and Cut and have it cut out so we can have texture to add to the background of our project. So we have that sheet I stamped, and we have our mat. I'm using the low tack adhesive mat since this is just a piece of printer paper. And I'm going to put it on. Now when you're doing a big design like this, you want to keep it in the middle of your page. So later on when you go to cut it, you already have a border set in. You're not right at the edge of your page. So I'm going to insert my mat. And I'm going to scan it in. Scan to cut data. And hit start. So this one will take a little bit longer to recognize because there's a lot more information going on. So while that is recognizing, I'm going to take this mat here with the purple. This is the standard mat. And I'm going to put my cardstock. I'm just using a thin cardstock on it, getting ready to cut it. So we'll just let that recognize. And over here, I'm just putting my paper. So there you have, we have recognized it. So I want to cut all those in between parts. So I'm picking this middle one. And then I am moving my area closer to the stamped image. You can move it up a bit if you want. And I'm going to save that. Just takes a little bit extra processing time again because it's so much information going on. So I'm going to save to the machine. Hit OK. So we're going to get out of this. It's okay to delete. And go back to the home screen. And I'm going to remove this one. Bring in my standard mat. So we go into pattern, our save data, the machine, up one, there we have it. Because I have just scanned it in, I know that where my paper is right now is going to be good. So I don't need to scan my paper. If you are coming back and you want to scan to make sure it all falls in, you can do that, but I know I'm okay. You also don't want to change the size or move this because all these little tiny images are individual. So how you scan it, I would suggest just leaving it like that to cut. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit cut. And it's just going to process it. Now we're going to let this cut on its own because there's so much information it's going to take a long time to cut out. So we're going to let it cut and then we'll come back when it's all done cutting. So it has finished cutting, and it did take a while to cut through. So you can do something, but do something around the room. I wouldn't leave the machine cutting without you being in the room. So I would just sit around and prepare something else for that. So you hit OK. And now we're going to release the paper. I'm going to lift that up. So now when I take this off, want to be careful releasing it. If it rips a little, it's okay because it's very fine cut and we're going to be using this as texture. So you can see how it has cut all those numbers out. I just have to clean off my mat where I use my spatula to do so, and this sheet is ready to add on to our project. So we have the page here that we just finished cutting out, and I just want to point out that some of the ones that didn't fully come out, it's because the stamp, when it's stamped, it wasn't connected to something to cut out. It was like, it wasn't a full thing when you stamped it down, if that makes sense. But for what we're using it for, it's just fine. So what I like to do is I tear along the edge, because I'm going to be adding this to a card. So I'm tearing it up. And I'm going to be gluing it right down onto my card. So now, because we're going to be using the Inktense blocks with this, the Inktense will react differently where there's the multi-medium versus where the solid card is. So I don't want to put medium over the entire card, just so you can see the difference between how it reacts with the paper and the medium. I'm going to tear a bit more. Maybe put it here. And so what I'm doing is, when you put the color over top of this, it just adds that texture without the busyness. So it's just a tone-on-tone texture. I have another piece here that I had cut with circles, so I'm going to add some of that on. Put it down here. I'll just do this and then I'll cut off the edge of the paper. Then I think, and you can even overlap your texture a bit if you want. And then I always like to add odd numbers. So I've got 4 pieces of texture. I want a little bit more. So it doesn't have to be a big piece, but I think, where do I want to add it? Maybe I'll just add some in here. And the reason there's a bit of color there is I think my brush had some paint on it. But it'll get covered by our Inktense blocks. So there, I've added on our texture. I'm going to dry this, and then it's time to have fun painting. So here we have the Derwent Inktense blocks. This is the set of 72 glorious, glorious colors. And they come in these sticks. You can buy these little holders to keep your fingers from getting color on them, but because I change them in and out so often, I'm just going to use my fingers. And it's ranged in, you have your yellows, orange, reds, pinks, purples, blues, greens, and then all your browns and blacks and whites. So now we're going to play with them. So I have my card here with my texture that we cut out already on there. And what color? Maybe some pinks and purples today, because I love pink and purple. And so all you want to do is color directly onto the card. Now, as I said before, depending if there was multi-medium, you're going to see the color react differently from the straight on card to where the medium was. Even going on here, you can see the difference in the intensity. So I'm just coloring it on like this. Using a variety of colors that I know will all look great together. All those pinks and purples and reds. So I'm going to leave it like that for our first coat. Whenever I use something like this, I like to squirt it with water to activate those colors. And then I'm going to take a brush, and you can see how the pigment just with the water activates into a beautiful rich pigment paint. So even when it's wet, I can go in then and even add some more. And you can see how rich that is. And like everything, the more water you add, the softer the color will become. So if you want that richer color, you don't want to add so much water. Still had some purple on my brush, but you can see now how beautiful and rich that pink is. What color? Maybe some red. This one is more of an orange red. So you can go from having soft to some nice rich colors. But because there's some water added, wherever we had that multi-medium, it's just you want to have a lot less water if you want the richness over where the medium was. And then I can even just dip it in water if it's so you can get that nice Inktense colors. It's so nice and rich. And you can see how that the papers underneath now are just adding that tonal texture to our background. So you can continue playing with this for a long time, but you can see how we're building up a really great background that then I can go over with some of my cutouts that I have and make a great card. And remember, you have 72. You can get smaller packages of these. You don't have to buy 72. But there's at least 72 fabulous colors that you can buy. And they're really easy to use. Not much mess. And so I'll leave my background like that for now. So you can see all that texture coming through, all the fabulous color from the Inktense blocks. I'm just going to show you an art journal page I made. So here we have, up here I've got some circles and circles in the background. So all that texture just sort of fades into the background, but it's still there, giving you some added dimension and layers. And then I used my cutouts from the Scan and Cut and doodled around using my Liquitex paint pens and just to write on top of my background to make this really fun page. So that is the Derwent Inktense Blocks. Well, that's it for today's episode. Be sure to check out our website at www.scraptime.ca. And on our next episode, I'm showing you the Indigo Blue Flitter Glue Kit. So please join us. Thanks for watching Scrap Time.